Hi, it's Wyndham. I've been reading a new book recently. The excellent Adam Grant has released his new book, Hidden Potential. I'm only that far through it at the moment. Already really, really interesting. But it's introduced me to a new term. Now, everybody, sweeping statement, everybody will be aware of the term burnout, right? It's emotional exhaustion that accumulates when we're overloaded. I think we're all used to the term because it's how businesses operate. Another sweeping statement. However, certainly my experience is true. A business is always looking to over-deliver with as little resource as it can get away with. And invariably, that leads to at least certain individuals within an organisation working more and more and more and more and more with less and less rest that ultimately eventually overwhelms them. It's too much work, exhaustion sets in, they have to stop. And we understand the remedy for burnout. Stop, rest. Look at from an organisational perspective, look at your staffing plan, your talent plan, and make a decision. Because if you choose not to address the burnout in your organisation, that's a choice. Full stop. I've never suffered from burnout. Ever. I know lots of people who have, but it's never been something I've had to deal with. But I've been introduced to a term that perfectly encapsulates what I was dealing with. And it is the term bore-out. So we've got burnout, which is emotional exhaustion from being overloaded. And then we have bore-out, which is essentially an emotional deadening through lack of stimulation. Whereas in burnout, we're overloaded, we're overstimulated, overloaded. In bore-out is this chronic understimulation. And if I look back on my career, that is what I had. That is what I was suffering with. And it's nothing to do with the organisation I was working for. It was nothing to do with the industry I was working in. It was nothing to do with the tasks of the job that I was doing. It's the fact that all of those things combined didn't stimulate me. And it's been this kind of like jaw-dropping, oh my God, it is as simple as I was bored out of my mind. And that kind of begs the question, why didn't I do something about it? The reason I didn't do anything about it was because of the stories I had told myself, because of the blueprint I was operating under. The stories I told myself and the things I thought to be true about the world around me and about myself limited my self-limitation. I limited my own ability and my own capability to see something different. Even to the point where I wouldn't have described myself as bored at the time. I wouldn't have been able to put it in those words. I wouldn't have said, oh, you know what this is? I'm understimulated. But as soon as I read this term in Adam's book, it was like, that's it. I was never in any risk of burnout because I didn't care enough to work to the degree required to become emotionally and physically exhausted. But equally, I was suffering from a deadening, an emotional deadening, because nothing about what I was doing stimulated me. I had people, like senior leaders within the business, saying, you know what, Wyndham, I really wish you would contribute more, because when you do, there's real value in it. But I didn't contribute more because I couldn't have cared less. I wasn't stimulated by anything that was happening. And like I say, it's nothing to do with the business, nothing to do with the industry, nothing to do with the individuals I was working for. and working with, it was all about me. This stuff doesn't stimulate me. So, if you're sat there at work and everybody's talking about burnout and everybody's talking about this, that and the other, and you're sat there going, well, I'm definitely not burnt out, but I don't know what's going on. Take a moment and think, are you suffering from bore-out? Do you feel understimulated? Because if you do, in exactly the same way that if you're suffering burnout, there are things you can, and if you want to feel better, don't know where that was coming from. If you want to feel better, you have to do those things. You have to rest. You have to take time away. You have to unburden yourself from the overload. If you are suffering bore-out and you don't want that to be the case, right? It's such a miserably tedious way of going through life. I know, because it happened to me for so long. It's just this, nothing is of any consequence. You know, I never got angry. I never got upset. I never got disappointed. Because I didn't care. And that is a horrible way to spend your life. The people I love speaking to, the people I love to be around, are people who are passionate. And I don't care what they are passionate about. It makes no difference. When you speak to someone who is passionate, the topic is irrelevant. Or, more importantly, the topic becomes interesting because we are engaged by their passion. You talk to someone who's bored, they can be talking about something you care very deeply about and you find exciting, and your mood will start to lower because they're not talking in a way that is enticing and exciting and passion-filled. So if, now that you've been introduced to this term bore-out, which apparently is a term in psychology, right? Professional psychologists use this term. If that is how you are now beginning to be thinking, oh my God, that's me. What are you going to do about it? The reality is, if you are in that situation, the situation is not stimulating for you. That's okay. We all have different stimulations. We all have different things we're passionate about. There's a lot of talk in professional circles and certainly in coaching about finding purpose. Yeah, and it's one of those terms that's been used so much, we become a bit desensitized to it, and it's this broad, sweeping, find your purpose and you'll be grand, don't worry about it. In reality, passion is a much simpler thing to connect to. And through our passions, well, then it becomes, well, what can I do with this? I love doing it. You know, we know that people who do something you love and you never work a day in your life. Well, this is what we're talking about. It isn't that you never work a day in your life. It's that all the things required of you to be successful, however you define that, feel less like work when we're doing something we care about. When we do something that we reflect back on and go, I see more in this than just a job. But we don't find those things without looking for them. Nothing is going to stroll up, slap us in the face and say, by the way, you're passionate about this. This is about doing things, just picking things, trying them, going, do you know what, I quite enjoyed that. Yeah, that's cool. Passion grows over time. Right? We don't just look at something and go, that sparked my passion. That was a really weak, there you go. That sparked my passion. It takes commitment to finding it. I leave you with that. If you are sat at work thinking, this is really dull, there's a lack of stimulation in your life, and that is very unlikely to change unless you go looking for something that is stimulating. Take a step back. Give yourself time and space to start to think, reflect on the things that you enjoy doing. You know, it's such a simple thing. We've been conditioned into thinking that, well, if I enjoy it, that's not what work is about. Work is about head down, trudging forward. Well, I've got to earn money, I've got to pay the bills, and today that is a daunting task. I've just got to keep ploughing forward. There are certain expectations of me. I've got to deliver against those. We're not taught to, well, why don't we start with something we care about? Why don't we start with something we are passionate about? But you aren't going to realise those things until you go looking for them. And once you go looking for them, then it's a case of doing them. Feel stimulated. We cannot create the ideas and the opportunities that will see us moving forward from a distance. We've got to be in it. We have to be doing the things we care about to spark the ideas. I leave you with that. I wish you a peaceful and joyful few days, and I will speak to you soon.